So in this video, we're going to be using a product I've never used before, where this is an install we actually already did, and we warned the customer that the product he wanted us to put in wasn't of good quality. He now agrees, and it's time to switch it out. Check this out. So what we're going to be using is the Massive DSP1. Now this is supposed to be a 60x4 4-channel amp with a built-in DSP that will work with the powered channels of the amp as well as the outputs. So you can run this also outputs to other amps and control the DSP functions out the outputs. This is going to replace a Taramps that the customer had me install behind his new Kenwood radio, and the sound quality just isn't there. And the thing that was needed was size. The Taramps was very tiny, and this DSP1, sorry for the noise, seems to be pretty tiny itself. I should be able to fit this back there. I don't think I'm going to have a problem. We have the RCA outs here, which we're not going to be using. He doesn't really have any other amps. He does have a kicker sub in the back. I may go at the sub output on here, but I don't know if I need to run the sub off the DSP. Since there's no bass knob or anything like that, I don't see what I would gain by doing so. But this is going to be running the 2.75-inch kickers in the dash, the kicker door speakers, and then we're going to have the rears running off the radio. That way we can cross over the dash and the doors independently with this DSP. Now in the car, we've already replaced the door speakers with the kicker KS's. We've done the kicker KS 2.75s up in the dash and the kicker KS's in the rears. We also changed out to a Kenwood radio. So he now has a Kenwood head unit in here, and behind that head unit is a Taramps amplifier. Very small little amplifier. Not known for sound quality. Definitely told the customer that it probably wasn't going to sound that good, but he already had it and he wanted to use it. So we did. And within a week, he had called me and agreed that it was not up to par and he would like to change it out. This is one of those learning moments for you out there. Listen to your installer. If you're trusting your installer with your car, trust him with what he's telling you, because this would have been a whole lot easier to do once rather than doing it twice. Now in the back, we did the kicker L7, which this thing's awesome. This is what I run in my car. I have two of these. This thing slams in here underneath the floor here, which is almost impossible for me to show you without pulling the sub, and there's no reason for me to do that, is a big audio pipe. APCL 15001D. Again, not a line that we carry, but something he already had and just wanted to use it. It seems to be doing its job. He seems to be happy with the sub, so we're just going to take care of that front end today. The first step is going to be to pull out this Kenwood radio. So I got to get the dash off, pull the radio out, and get to the Taramps that I installed. I made a plate behind there to hold the Taramps, so I need to go ahead, get it unhooked, get it removed, and then make sure that the DSP1 is going to fit. Okay, so we have the Taramps removed, and yeah, it's actually a little bit smaller than I thought. So the Massive DSP1 is definitely larger than the Taramps, but it looks like I can still make it happen. There's enough room behind the radio where I'm actually should be able to mount this sideways. I can fit it this way, but it's going to be too tight for any RCAs. I'm just not comfortable putting it that tight, so I will figure out a way to mount it vertically, and then that should work. Let's go ahead and get all this stuff unwired and get this thing figured out. Okay, so right off the bat, the Massive DSP1 seems like a really cool idea, but the manual's trash. So I'm hoping that this manual is not a representation of the product, because this is absolute garbage. This will help you in no way, shape, or form. It makes no sense. It's got riddled with misspellings like subwoofer and words and things that I've never heard of in the car audio world. And the biggest problem I'm finding right now is this is the software to use, and there's no information anywhere as far as where to get the software. I don't know if I plug this in to a computer, is it going to automatically like load it? It doesn't tell you anything. It's absolutely useless. My other concern is it's supposed to be a 4-channel amp, but the wiring is just like a regular head unit wiring. So, I mean, current Ohm's law, this thing definitely didn't change the way that works. So I'm assuming this is basically going to have about head unit power going out of it, which may be okay, may be disappointing. I'm not really sure, but right now I'm kind of at a 50-50 now if this was a good idea or not, and this definitely is making me not feel warm and fuzzy. So I'm going to continue on and see if this was all worth doing. Okay, so to get the car prepped, first thing we had to do was get the Kicker 2.75 inch driver, take it out and rewire it, because it's originally wired up through the factory wiring and it was paralleled off the door. What we're going to be doing now with the 4-channel DSP is running these off of 2 of the channels and then these off 2 of the channels, and we've already wired up the rears to run off the radio. So now this side is done. We've got new speaker wire ran down and across and over to here. Got to do that side, and then we could test fit the DSP1. But first I'm going to hook it up on my test bench so I can try to figure out exactly how the software works, or how do I get it before I get it into the car. The other issue I got to work out here is I have the amp DSP, you know, kind of ready to go in there, everything strapped up and go in the directions I want, but it's USB, so you control it through a laptop. You can't do the DSP features through like Bluetooth, and that's like an old printer style. I don't even know what you call those old USBs, but those right there. So once that's installed, you're not going to have access to this. So I'm going to have to find a USB cable that I can run out of here and like have go into the glove box or something, so you can plug in and, you know, tune it while it's installed. Problem is, I don't have these like laying around. So I'm going to have to see what I have, and if I do have them, they're like probably like 20-30 feet long because they're for running printers across the office. So I got to get that taken care of as well. Oh, and after an obscene amount of time, finally have the DSP1 mounted back there where it'll be behind the radio. That is just a lot of wire. I mean, I have done everything I can to make it as pretty as possible, but when you got mics and then backup cameras and sub RCAs, antennas, all this stuff needs to be able to plug in, and then that unplugs. It is a mess in there. Done everything I could to get it somewhat orderly. But I do have a USB cable there going to the glove box, so I'll run it out to there. So now the next step is to plug in the radio, make sure it's going to set back in there, not have any depth issues, and also make sure that everything works and we didn't miss a step. Well, we've got it done. Everything's back together. We've got it tuned in, and it is definitely an improvement from the Taramp. The DSP1, my opinion on it is, it's a stretch to call it a DSP, but it does have some features, and I'll show you real quick. So here's the software for the DSP. It's basically a crossover and equalizer. It's very simplistic. There's not any like really hardcore features that you're gonna find like on some of the other DSPs. But the price point kind of shows that. But what you have is you have your equalizer up here. Down here you've got channels 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. Now channels 1, 2, 3, 4 work for the RCA output as well as the powered channels, which is what I'm using the amplifier section to run the fronts. So I have channels 1 and 2 running the dash 2.75s. Channels 3 and 4 are running the door speakers. Now you can adjust the gains, you can adjust the crossovers, the crossover types, and over here you have some time alignment that you can adjust as well. My biggest complaint that I found was the internal amplifier seems to be just a little too weak. It's kind of what I suspected when I saw the power connections. It's basically the power of a head unit, which is kind of what the Taramps was doing as well. So The customer definitely gained though in volume and clarity. So with this right here, I'm able to boost, so I was able to boost the gains up a little bit to kind of compensate for that volume offset with the rears and the fronts. Got it all balanced out, and it sounds way better than it did. And this is by no means a like competition or even a mid-level install. This is a entry-level system by all means. That's all that's in this car. So from what he had to what he has now, definitely better. Would I do it again? Yes. But I would put the DSP1 probably in the glove box, or I would have put it in the rear rather than trying to fit it behind the radio. I really thought it was smaller than it was. I didn't realize the size of it. That made the installation very, very, very hard. I also had really bad engine noise, but I put in an SN1 ground loop isolator and that fixed it. But the crazy thing is, I had to take out the Stinger Series 4000 RCAs and put in like some old Radio Shack RCAs for it to work correctly. With the Stinger 4000s hooked up to the ground loop isolator, the right side was losing all of its mid. It was just really high pitched, you know, treble. It was very strange. I'm not sure why that is, but there was something about the ground loop isolator and those RCAs that did not get along. So I switched them out with some like cheaper Radio Shack ones just to kind of see if I could isolate it. And the noise went away and everything sounded great. So that's definitely an odd thing I've never seen before. So final thoughts on the Massive DSP1. It is a good entry level kind of get you there DSP. It definitely allows you to set your crossover slopes. You can do all that, equalizer. The internal amp, I wouldn't use in the future. If you're ever going to use one of these, just use it with external amps and just, that's it. Also, you have to realize it only has one set of inputs. So you will not be able to have front and rear fade from your radio. If you're wanting to hook in front and rear, you can't. It just has left and right input. So if you're needing anything for like chimes or warning chimes, or you need, you know, parking sensors in the front and in the rear all to separate, I don't think this DSP is going to be able to do that. Basically, it's just looking for a signal to come in, and then it's going to give you the ability to equalize and cross over and time align those signals and try to make it sound as good as possible. So if you can pick it up for a good price, I think it's like $150, $200 at the most. Any more than $200, I'm sorry, I can't say to get it, because there's other DSPs on the market for around that price that have a lot more features than this and don't use this software. The other thing on the software I will point out, my Windows popped up and didn't want to load it because it said that it was unsafe for my PC. I scanned it, I didn't find a virus, but I think it's using some kind of port or software that Windows knows can be attacked. So just be aware of that also. I don't know who makes this software, I don't know where it's from. I know it's not Massive, because this is the same style software that was on the Genius DSP that I tested a couple years ago. So I'm not sure what it is, but just be wary of putting it on like your machine that has your banking. This is just a straight up DSP machine that never interacts with anything personal. I'm Cape Sipes, Custom Audio Reimagined. Thanks for watching.